I'm going to show you several different ways that you can narrow your focus during the burpee broad jumps in training so you can collect data so you can understand exactly what's going to work for you, and you can create a plan for race day that will help you execute better and optimize the burpee broad jumps for Hyrox. My name is Rich Ryan, 1/3 of the coaching team here at RMR Training, a 2-time Elite 15 World Championships qualifier with a PR of 54:28. So there are 4 different categories that I put in these optimizations that will give you the best bang for buck, starting with greatest to least. It doesn't mean one is more important than the other. It just means that some will get you better at burpee broad jumps immediately, while others will increase your ceiling long term. If you maximize each one of these optimizations, you're going to give yourself the best chance to improve for burpee broad jumps and actually make this a strength. So I suggest you take all of these optimizations seriously and watch to the end of the video. So the first thing that you should do is try to optimize your pacing. You can get better at burpee broad jumps tomorrow if you pace things better. There are a couple pieces when it comes to pacing that will help you understand where that line is and how you should approach it during the actual race. So the first piece of pacing is knowing your reps. Knowing how many burpee broad jumps it's going to take you to complete the 80 meters is a very important starting point. So once you have this under control, then you can have a plan throughout and be like, I'm going to do 3 burpee broad jumps and then kind of take an extended rest. I'm going to take 2 burpee broad jumps, take an extended rest. I'm going to break out the 40 to 50 to 60, whatever it takes you to get it done, and have a set plan so that you can actually dictate what you're doing during the station so that you can have a better idea of where to pace. The second piece to pacing is your resting positions. The big mistake that I see are people kind of standing all the way up without jumping forward when getting up from the burpee position. And this is just not an efficient way to move through the station. So you got to know which places to rest. I suggest you rest either on the ground or at your knees after you complete the jump. This will really help your cadence when it comes to pacing. So optimizing your rest position is really important. The third piece is what style of burpee that you want to execute during the station. So I would suggest 2 different pieces, mostly on the descent. So you can either step back or you can jump your legs back. I suggest no matter what that you do step up. You can jump up with 2 feet. It's just a little bit more costly. There is a better energy return in terms of the elastic energy they're going to get from your lower legs, but it's not worth the energy cost. So I always suggest you step up and into that jump. But stepping backwards and slowing down the actual cadence of the burpee is a great way to regulate how much energy you're putting out. So knowing that stepping back or jumping back are both viable options and understanding which one is going to work better for you, either throughout the entire duration of the station or within pieces to slow yourself down. And the fourth piece is just regulating your rate of perceived exertion. Once you have an idea of where the line is, you will have a better understanding of how hard to go. So I suggest in training that you try a variety of different burpee methods and different pacing. Instead of just being stuck at one pace that you think you can get things done in, pop the pace up a little bit, drop it down a little bit slower. Playing around with the actual speed and cadence that you're doing the burpee broad jumps is going to help you understand your rate of perceived exertion. And then once you're in the event itself, you can have that to regulate how hard you want to go in the actual station itself. So the second optimization category is optimizing the standard. If you maximize the amount of space that each burpee is allowing you, then you're going to do less work. This is the only station in Hyrox where there's a bit of like wiggle room between how much you are moving. So I suggest that you maximize this. And for myself, I can get myself in a bit of trouble here because I ride the line really, really tight. But the way that I see it is if the standard is given to you, you should just take it for everything that it is, right? So the way that I think of this is if you're playing basketball and you have a free throw and it's 15 feet from the hoop, why would you step back an extra foot and shoot from 16? You'd want to make it 15. It's a little closer. It would be a little bit easier. So the same kind of way with this standard, like understanding how much you can move within each rep is going to help you get through the station faster. Again, it has nothing to do with fitness, but it can help you get through the station faster than your competitors. So the first thing you can maximize is your hand placement. The rule book states that you have 12 inches from your foot to your hand to get to the ground, right? So that is exactly a foot, 12 inches. So being able to kind of put drills in place by using tape or some sort of visual indicator to understand how much 12 inches is during training will help you wire patterns so that when you get back into the actual event, you can do it without even thinking. You can know what a foot is visually and also just from pattern recognition that you will nail that 12 inches each time. You might want to play it a little tighter. 11 inches might be the move just so that it doesn't look too long sometimes because it is fairly subjective when being judged. But take every inch of those 12 inches if they're giving it to you. So the next piece is your foot placement. You're allowed to step your foot all the way to your fingertips. So I suggest you take every single inch that you have to maximize that so you can do more work within each rep. In the past, I get pretty close. So I've created a kind of system to help me understand exactly where that is. I call this caging your foot. So what I do, as I'm bringing my foot up to my hands, I tip onto my fingertips without moving my hand forward and then stick my foot basically directly behind those tips. And then I start my jump. This basically creates a hard wall so that I know my foot is not going beyond my hand. Because stepping in between, it can get pretty close if you're trying to maximize that. And without really trying, you might step beyond it with that momentum. So caging your foot is a good way to make sure that you are optimizing the standard without overstepping. The last piece of the standard is going to be better for events that have burpee broad jumps that kind of switch directions a couple of times. And it's kind of turning your foot as you jump beyond the line. You need to clear the entire line with that last jump for the rep to count. So what I like to do is on that final jump, to ensure that I'm getting past that line, I turn my foot sideways and land so my heels are kicked off to the side, and it creates a little bit more space to clear that line. Again, this might be something that you do if you're not quite sure if you're going to make it, but I would try it just so you don't have to go backwards and do another or to stop you from coming to the ground again. It's worth the effort to try to get there on that last jump a little bit further than if you are not quite sure and you're going to do another burpee. So jumping and landing off to the side is a great way to ensure that you're going to clear that line. So the third optimization is optimizing your mechanics. Now, this will ultimately raise your ceiling higher than your pacing and the standard, but it takes time. It's going to take time to improve and really to wire these patterns. You're going to need to practice your mechanics and maybe reduce some limiters in your mechanics to really get as good as possible in the burpee broad jump movement. So the first thing that you should do, you should always keep your chin up during the burpee broad jump. So as you hit the ground, I would still suggest you keep your chin up. As you are coming up, keep your chin up. This is just going to keep your airway open and it's going to help your breathing. Instead of kind of collapsing everything down, you are going to be able to have up and just being able to breathe a little bit better. So keeping your chin up during the entire portion of the burpee broad jump is going to help with your breathing overall and just your ability to regulate that RPE as we talked about earlier. The second piece that I like to do is to load my jump as I ascend from the ground. So as I'm coming off of the ground in the burpee, I like to pull one hand back as my other foot is coming forward so that I'm ready to spring forward and also use that momentum for my hands. What I've done in the past is I will step up and then bring both hands back and bring them both forward. But this is kind of an extra step. So as that foot comes up and I'm caging my foot, my other hand is moving backwards so that when I'm ready to jump, I have something loaded instead of bringing both back once I'm at the top. You need to really have the timing down to bring both back. And in order to make sure you're not overstepping and that you're abiding by the standard, I suggest bringing one arm back and swinging it forward to create that momentum. The next piece is to limit the eccentric loading on the descent. So this is basically when you're hitting the ground and coming and bringing your chest all the way to hit the standard, is to be as loose as possible so that you're not straining to lower yourself down. This eccentric loading is going to cause some energy and it's going to be a bit slower. So the quicker you can get to the ground, the looser you can be within your arms, that you're just like kind of dipping to the ground and hitting your chest, the better off you're going to be over the long term. A caveat with this is it can kind of screw up your pacing. If you're coming down really fast, you hit your chest too hard, then you might lose your breath, or your cadence might get revved up to the point where you're going too fast. So this goes back to the pacing. Practicing this, doing the least amount of work to the ground as possible, while being able to maintain an appropriate amount of RPE and pace. The last piece of the mechanics is trying to get your feet out in front of you for your jump. So if you ever watch like the long jump or triple jump, you'll see their feet are kicked way out in front of them so that they can get the most amount of distance on each jump. We're not going to have that type of energy, and we don't need to go to those type of extremes when going through our own burpee broad jump. But the best way to get through the burpee broad jumps is to maximize the jump. I found that the more distance you can cover, the less burpees you have to do, the better. So extending your feet out in front of you just even a bit is going to help, again, maximize the amount of each jump. So even if you're gaining an inch over the course of 40 burpee broad jumps, that's 40 inches. That's a lot of space that you can cover without needing to do more burpees. So even if you just reach your feet out just slightly, it's going to increase your ability to cover ground that much better. The fourth and final optimization is optimizing your training. Now, this is the best way to get better at burpee broad jumps. It's just going to take the longest amount of time to actually improve. All these other pieces that we covered before could make you better tomorrow. This will make you better next year. And this is something that we really should put a major focus on, because in order to get our best at Hyrox, we need to commit to an appropriate timeline. And in order to maximize what we want to do, we need to train over the course of time and overload and improve and get better at all these pieces. So although I'm listening this last, it is actually the most important piece. So the first thing you should do is increase your frequency. Do burpees more often. Do different varieties of them, but just do them more often during the week. I believe doing burpees 3 to 4 times a week is appropriate, where some of these other strength movements and station movements, about 2 is enough for me. But burpees, it's a little bit lower consequence. There's less load. You're not taking on as much damage as you would in some of the other movements. So doing them more often is the easiest way to get better. The second part is just improving your capacity aerobically. I feel like this is a struggle for a lot of people who might not have a really strong aerobic foundation. So just doing more aerobic work should make you better at burpees, because ultimately it is an aerobic movement. So more aerobic work is going to make you better at the burpees. The next thing I would do is train at multiple intensities and multiple variations so that you are a little bit more versed in the pacing like we talked about earlier, and also just the ability to do them faster. The faster you can do them, the less rate of perceived exertion it will take, the less energy it will take, the stronger you can become, and the more dynamic you can become in the actual burpees. So take time to do burpees as sprints in shorter pieces. We don't always have to do burpees at 80 meters at a time. I would suggest that you don't do that. But having places where you are doing longer grinds and having other places where you're doing shorter sprints is really important for your total ability level as a burpee broad jumper. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, just doing the work that you don't want to do is going to make you better. So do the grunt work. Do the things you don't want to do. Make your weaknesses a strength by just doing it. If you hate the burpees, do them more. That is just the name of the game here. There's no way around it. You need to do more work in order to be better at burpee broad jumps. So don't avoid them because you hate them. Try your best to embrace that hate and do more burpee broad jumps, do more burpees, do the grunt work, make your weaknesses a strength. So if you take care of all these pieces, I promise you will get better at burpee broad jumps. Make sure you're taking a look at our RMR training community and our training app. That'll give you some really strong suggestions of how to get better at all the stations, not just the burpee broad jumps. Share this with a friend, like, subscribe. I'll talk to you soon.